Hi, this is Jake from JKM Guitars, and I wanted to make a little video talking about a very exciting project I was involved with 2 years ago in 2021, which I can now finally start talking about. So I was the assistant carpenter on the Dungeons and Dragons film, which is now coming out in cinemas 31st of March in the UK. I saw the preview of it last night and it is really good, so you absolutely should go and check it out. So I was called in as an assistant carpenter under Jonathan Ross, who was the head carpenter, and we were making all these fantastic things like tables, chairs, 4-poster beds, sleds, coffins, teapots, wooden spoons, all these little exciting things. But there's one project in particular I really want to talk about. I've been dying for 2 years to start blabbing about it, and that was Edgin's Lute. So that is the lute and weapon of the main character, played by Chris Pine in the film, which I managed to somehow fluke into making for them. So while we were on set, there's the first few weeks, they knew I was coming in with a musical instrument background, and then I just cheekily asked one day, are there any musical instruments in this film? And they were like, yeah, actually, yeah, there is. Yeah, there's a lute one of the characters plays. And I was like, can I make it? And they were like, sure, yeah. We were going to get it outsourced, but yeah, sure, you can do it. And then it turned out to be the main character, Edgin's Lute. So this is a artist rendition of what they were intending it to be like, and then from there on I was involved in helping them design it and construct it to make it a functional musical instrument, as well as the sort of prop that they were looking for the film that had the functions that it had. So I originally took some plans home and made some plans up. So the instrument is based off of the Chinese pipa, which is a upright held plucked stringed instrument, and then they amalgamated it with some European styling. So their design had a scroll headstock like a violin. So a lot of features in the film, architecturally and all the design wise, were amalgamations of European and Asian kind of design and cultures to kind of make their own style. So that's where the look of the instrument came from. So there was some historical musical instrument people I was talking to while with this instrument, and they were getting a little agitated that people kept calling it a lute. And they were saying, it's not a lute, it's not a lute. I'm like, yes, it's fine. That's what we're all calling it here, so get on board. So here is the prototype lute that I designed up to allow the producers to kind of get a feel of what it would be like in the final product, and kind of at this point alter any of the shape and sizing and all this sort of thing. So originally a pipa is played sitting upright like this and plucked by the fingers, and it would normally have a longer string length, about 8 centimeters longer than this. This is 610 scale. So they wanted it to be a bit more squat, a bit more stout, so it's easier to carry and then easier to swing as a weapon. It's used as a club in the film. So a lot of the features from the pipa have been kept. So these tall pyramid frets are from the pipa design, and I believe it's so that you can get better vibrato on the notes by compressing. You have more room to squeeze the string down, which is a very oriental style of sound, but that's not how it was played in the film. It was played a lot more traditionally, held sideways like this, like a lute would be, simple. They're held sideways like that. The scroll headstock, this was my first scroll I ever scrolled, so it is a bit of a state, but thankfully with the final products I had a bit more time to spend on it and was able to make them look really quite nice. So once the design was given to the producers, this pattern on the front here was originally either carved or painted in. That was the idea. And on a pipa, the sound hole is a small little square just underneath the bridge, about the size of a postage stamp. But after I'd read the script, there was a scene where water needed to be poured out of the instrument for a sight gag. And I mentioned to them it wouldn't be possible with the location of this bridge. It wouldn't work as a kind of function for that part of the script. So then it was redesigned, so then the relief carving was just cut through in this demonstration, again to try and see whether that would work better. But I think it was decided it was a bit too flimsy. All these little pieces, I've had to glue a lot of them back on, It was a bit too delicate for the function of being a weapon. It needed to be more robust. So then in the film, how you'll see it is a lot of it is relief carved, and then in the center there's an added sound hole. So again, it functioned as an instrument, it functioned as a prop, and then also allow that kind of waterport look that they were looking for that particular scene. So after we had finalized the designs, I got some sycamore together, some Northern Irish sycamore I believe, and then made the bodies up for 3 identical instruments. One was for the prop department so they could cast it and then make copies of it in foam or resin or rubber, depending on different scenes. So whenever it's being carried on the back, it's not the real instrument, or when it's being smashed into someone's face, that will be a foam or rubber version. And then in battle scenes, whatever's on Chris Pine's back will be a foam version, so he doesn't fall over and break his back on this hard wooden bowl. So the construction of it was solid wood through the neck and the body, and then it was basically hollowed out like a big spoon. So the back of the body was carved out first to get the right profile, and then trying to marry up, make sure each of the bodies looked exactly the same. So if any scenes were cut from one to another, there wasn't any jarring obvious differences between them all. And then the inside was all scooped out, leaving just a small thickness of wood around the whole bowl of the back, and then the soundboard was glued into a recess into the face of the bowl. It then goes up to here where it marries up with the face of the neck before all the frets are glued on, and the heights descend from high up here to shallow down here as it kind of pulls forward in that look. One of the frets was designed to be knocked out to kind of give it a bit more aged and wear look. It's supposed to be a dozen years old or so, so it needed a bit of wear and tear onto it as well. And then, as you'll see in the film, the scrolls are a lot prettier than this one here, so I managed to get them looking well. So once I had finished with the construction of the instrument, I passed it through to the painters department. So I handed it over to them, sparkling white sycamore, and then a white, it was a Engelmann spruce top. So when they got it, they add the aged marks to it, any nicks and do's. I think his daughter's name is carved into the front as well. And then they aged it up to make it look 100 years old. It's really, really fascinating how they do their job. So once these 2 instruments had been painted up and stained and coloured, they were passed over to the drapes department, and on the back of the instruments, back to the lutes, there's like a dragon skin hide, which is just for extra clubbing power, I think. And then they also made a satchel so it could fit over his back and he could pull it out at a moment's notice. So then once all these features were done, I was handed back to me while I was involved to string it up and make it actually work as an instrument. So we used gut strings on the practical versions of the models, and pretty much 90% or so of the prop models as well, just to make sure all the scenes where it is swapped and changed, there was no obvious differences. On this here, it's just a nylon strung like classical guitar. So if anyone was trying to buy gut strings in England early 2021 and had difficulties, it's because we bought them all. We bought hundreds of them, so apologies. So the pegs on this are just wooden friction pegs, but the design for the pegs for the final model were these here. So they were designed to have the Harper logo on the head of the tuning peg. So the Harper organization is what the character Edgin was in. It's like a spy group. So they included that to kind of tie it in with this character. So hundreds of these little plastic pegs were made, these injection molded pegs, and then they were sent to the painters department to make it look like wood. So I remember walking to the paint departments and there was a block with hundreds of these on, and one of the painters was trying to stain and brush and make them look like old rosewood or old oak. So they were used instead of the wooden pegs, and then I was finally able to get this thing strung up, and then I had to figure out what they needed it to be tuned to. So if I remember rightly, Chris Pine had a Icelandic historical musical instrument teacher teach him how to play the instrument. So I had a discussion with him about what he was looking for the music that they had written for the piece, and he had come up with the decision to have it re-entrant tuning, similar to what you find on a ukulele. So you'd have a high string, and then a low one, and then so high, low, high, high, and then also paired in unison. So these two will be a C, the same C, and then we'd have a low G, and then a high G, an octave higher. Is this in tune? Let me just tune it.
2 hours later.
Okay, there we go. So it's C, G, C, G. And I do not envy violin and cello players for having to use friction pegs for tuning, because they are tricky. One thing to note with this, just as a little side comment for all instrument makers out there, I don't understand why this has as much volume and sustain as it does, seeing as there's so many holes riddled into this lute. So maybe everything we know about soundboards is wrong. Or maybe. So Chris Pine actually does play the lute in the film. He performs the songs himself. I don't know if there's any post-production magic done to it, so I didn't check whether they'd altered the tuning in post or whatever else, but as far as I was aware, this was the tuning we were sticking to at the time. So this was a really exciting project to me to be on, and to be able to, I was to be happy just to make all the chairs and tables, to be honest, but to be able to actually make an instrument for the film was amazing. So amazing. And then to see it on the big screen last night, and being used in battle, it was really fantastic. So I want to thank everyone who managed to indirectly or directly help me get to that sort of stage. So there'd be Jonathan, who helped me get the job, and then Susie and Naomi in the art department, and Paul Carter, the prop master. Just everyone who trusted me to do it, even because all I did was ask. I just asked, and they said yes. And now my lute, my little lute, will be seen by millions of people. And it's fantastic. And I even saw yesterday someone made a cosplay model, so that was really cool as well. So it was really, really exciting, and hopefully I can do some more musical film work in the future. I'd love to do that. So if you have any questions regarding how it was made or how it came together, anything like that, just let me know and I'll be happy to answer your questions. But you should absolutely go to the cinemas and watch Dungeons and Dragons, because it was a really, really good film, and you get to see my lovely lute in action. So thank you very much. Cheers. So I just want to say how grateful I am for given the opportunity to be able to make an instrument that is used in a blockbuster motion picture. Blockbuster.